The second half of the presentation deals with the second half of the Proforma quotation. And that is basically dealing with shipping terms. Shipping terms are called international commercial terms. And this presentation is based on Incoterms 2000. This year, in 2010, they're actually coming up with new Incoterms. They come up with them every 10 years. International commercial terms are published by the International Chamber of Commerce in Paris. They are not laws, they are recommendations. However, it's very important for exporters as well as importers to understand international commercial terms so that you will understand what you are paying for out of your pocket. So what are Incoterms and how do we quote? This is the website where you can get international shipping terms. And I definitely recommend that all exporters have copies of that. Now let's look at the bottom half of our Proforma quotation. The top half, as you will recall, talked about the shipper, the exporter with the name and address, the importer, the name and the address, the estimated delivery, and here I've got the estimated delivery again, 10 weeks after receipt of the signed order and possibly a deposit. Our recommended method of shipment in this case is ocean freight. Now remember, when you're preparing a Proforma quotation, it is a first offer. And so you make your recommendation. Should it be shipped by ocean? Should it be shipped by air? You're the expert in your product, so you will be the one making that recommendation. This area of the Proforma quotation is simply what you're shipping, what the product is, and how much you want to be paid for it. Now, let's get to the international commercial terms. What you see here are actually the shipping terms, and I'm going to explain shipping terms to you in a manner of from the perspective of the exporter. Now the first thing I want to say is that in the United States we like to FOB everything. We FOB my port, we FOB your port, we FOB warehouse, we FOB truck, we FOB everything. If you use the term FOB my factory to a buyer overseas, that buyer is going to think that you've got a port, an ocean port, right outside your factory door. There's only one FOB term internationally, and I'm going to tell you what that is today. First of all, let me introduce you to my exporter, who is Ken. And my importer, who is Esther. Now Ken has a very nice warehouse with windows and a loading dock. It's a prefab. He arranged for Esther to get the same one. Hers is not air conditioned, but it does have nice flow through on the windows. And she has a loading dock. Ken manufactures green and red boxes that can stack on top of each other. And these are just the thing that Esther needs. So Esther is interested in buying these. Ken wants to ship these boxes ex works. Why? Because Ken is not a very sophisticated exporter, and because he thinks that is the easiest way to ship. Ex works means that Ken is going to manufacture the products and put them on his loading deck. Then he's going to cross his hands and wait for Esther to come and pick up the product. This is what I call the tail wagging the dog. This is the worst possible way for an exporter to ship. The reason being that you give Esther complete control of the movement of your goods. Now, let's say that Esther is actually an Al-Qaeda. And let's say that these green and red boxes are being used to manufacture roadside bombs. And Esther picks them up and she ships them to Afghanistan. and some roadside bombs go off, and Homeland Security comes knocking on your door one day and says, Ken, we have found your red and green boxes in some roadside bombs in Afghanistan, and we would like to know how they got there. Ken's going to say, I have no idea. I sold X Works. Do you think Homeland Security is going to say, oh, well, no problem. You sold X Works, then we have no business with you? No. Ken is a party to the export. Ken is responsible for knowing where those red and green boxes are going to end up. When Ken does an X Works shipment, he puts complete control in the hands of Esther. That is the most dangerous way for an exporter to ship. Now, why do exporters ship X Works? Because they don't have to pay anything out of pocket. It doesn't matter if an exporter has to pay out of pocket, because the bill is going to go to Esther anyway. It's simply a matter of who is working for Ken. Now let's talk about the second shipping term, and we're going to talk about ocean freight to begin with. The second term we're going to talk about is FCA, and that stands for free carriage. And in an FCA shipment, Esther has decided she wants to consolidate freight with a consolidator in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So she is asking Ken to please quote her FCA Spartanburg, South Carolina. In this case, Ken is going to manufacture the products, put them on his loading deck. Ken is going to call the truck. The truck will come and pick up the freight and deliver it to Esther's freight forwarder or consolidator in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Now, Ken is going to do something else in this situation. Let me introduce you to Homeland Security. This is ADA. We hired him because he only has one ear. This is U.S. Customs. Now, Ken is going to prepare goods or paperwork in order to clear U.S. Customs, because he is going to be the exporter of record. So when he delivers the goods, FCA, to Esther's broker in Spartanburg, Ken is going to be responsible for all export documentation, being the commercial invoice, and see that the AES documents are filled out. That's FCA. Now, typically, Esther is going to want Ken to deliver to the port. Now we get to FOB. FOB means free on board an ocean vessel. This is my ocean vessel. I like it a lot. It comes complete with a steamship captain. I can store freight below deck. I can store it on deck. And when my grandbaby comes to see me, we can play with it in the tub. So, this is an FOB shipment. Ken is going to prepare the goods. He's going to call the truck. He's going to load the truck. He's going to send the truck to the port of Charleston. He's going to clear customs. He's going to pay all port charges to get the freight loaded on board the ocean vessel. That is FOB, free on board an ocean vessel. That is the only term in international terms where FOB